Hello Audio World, my name's Scott Maxwell. Going to be going over a festival monitor console setup with this ST9 I have here. Going to start looking at the session layout and then the MISC panel, so your comms in and out, shout buses, shout talks, etc. Within the console. Sort of aimed at the small scale Glastonbury WOMAD size festivals where 90% of the acts will be using the house console. So I would tend to first, of course, find out what deck you spec, make sure that it works for all the artists, if they have spec'd any consoles, if there's any touring engineers coming, etc. Check the firmware of the console, of course. I would then reach out and try and grab some show files if it's that kind of festival. If not, we're going to build our own, of course, the house console. And then from taking that information, I would look into their spec side if there are any files that come back. Obviously checking firmware, and then I'll look at the actual physical patching of their world. So the majority in ears on the first few cards, and the wedges on the second cards. We look at introducing a sort of standard. So if they do turn up with another file on the day, it's going to be a minimal amount of soft patching just to try and work out the genuine consensus of which way that would work. Input wise, of this level show, I would say most of bands would take up inputs 1 to 48. Most, obviously, there's more out there, and we deal with that separately, but the majority would. Now, we can then give those channels to the patch guys, and we stay out their way. They're very busy, of course. And we would then use the 49 to 56 as miscellaneous inputs, so things like ambience inputs, shouts, talkback, music inputs, etc., compares, all that while there, so it nestles in and it's out the way of the touring acts. And then with that said, I would then go and start to build my session file, all that information I've gained. If I cross over now to the offline editor, which I've got synced up with this ST9, hopefully this works. Okay, so if I go into here, I can then go into my session structure, which is where, of course, I begin. Now I have given myself 70 channels here, so to begin with, so of course 1 to 48 obviously, and then some extras for some reverbs and miscellaneous inputs that might come up during the build. I've spec myself 12 aux mono sends and 8 stereos. 1 group bus, of course, because we don't need that in our world, really, for this sort of festival lasts. I am running at 96k for better cohesion on the in-ears. Now, you might run at 48k if it's being an outdoor broadcast of some variety. We might have a MADI split going directly to broadcast, so you might have to run at 48k, which is fine. Just have to check through your show files, etc. if you've received anything like that. I'm not going to restructure here, but you may restructure if you were creating it. Now, I've already given myself some channel names, so if I just go into my channel list here, go to my inputs, of course 1 to 48 there, as you see, are free. Coming down further, now I've got ourselves a patch talkback, stage tech talkback, probably wireless, broadcast talkback, so we've got that involved here, front of house shout, which is probably a hard wire link to front of house, and then a talk to stage also from front of house on analog, so just in case there's a touring board out front, they can quickly send that to me really speedily, and it's already in the system in Code 4. Now I've got a bit posh. I've got a pink left and right, so 2 mono faders. I just find it really quick. If you have the real estate on the board, really quick to flash in ears. If you have to have stereo widgets, so really, really fast. Job done. So if we pop down to our aux outputs in here, so I've got some wedges in there already, and some in-ears, so we've got 4 mixers on the front, upstage right, upstage left, float wedges, a separated kit mix, so I've got a kit top and a kit sub, so I generally do that because quite a few engineers these days turn up and they just like a sub because the drummer's on in-ears, really fast way of doing it, and you've got less spill coming off the stage from another box that's not being used from the top, so you can mute that quite sufficiently and quickly. Stereo side fill. So we've got 5 stereo in-ear mixes, a tech mix, which we'll go over. Now that tech mix, if it's a house board, this will normally reflect to our guys on the audio team, so patch engineers, etc. But also I've had a few where they've required a tech mix, backline people. That's just a quick one to throw out. And then we've got a shout mix and a shout duck. Now we'll go over that shout duck later, but shout mix is basically for my in-ear communication stuff. So then we've got a shout mix and a shout duck. The shout mix, I'll show you that shortly, basically routes to my in-ears constantly, so hear communications. A shout duck, we'll also go that soon as well. It's slightly related to that tech mix, what we'll go over shortly. The only thing we haven't done yet is just checking here is the solo input. So I've also labelled my, I have a stereo IEM solo, which is solo 1 I've renamed, a solo 2, which is my wedge solo, a floor wedge, as you'll see the purposes for that later on. I do use my talk input as my dedicated shout input because it's just so easy to route it anywhere, really, really fast. You know, you can have it on macro keys, etc. We'll go over later on. It's just much more flexible. So go from there, I'm going to pull that out now. So if I go to my right hand side of my console, so I've already put these on the layers. Have you seen in other videos how to do that already? So I have my mixes here to the wedges and my dual solos. I try to stick them on every level. So as I go through each layer, they always appear in the same place. It's just quite useful that way. If you need to grab something, you can hear it instantly. So there's my wedge layer I've already created. I've labelled as well. And my in-ear layer as well, also created. So from there, I'm going to take you to the right-hand side of this SG9 to the matrix layer I've got set in there already. Now I'm just going to walk you through this. So I've already put in a Q left and right, tech left and right, and a spare left and right. I'm going to go through this matrix system now of how we use this. So I use, and many others use, a Q mix left and right on a matrix-based system. We do this because we can feed the IEM solo PFL directly into the Q mix via the matrix mixer, which I'll go over shortly. And along with that, because it's a matrix-based system, we can also send in another mix directly to our ears. So we send the shout bus directly into our ears all the time. Now what this gives is I can be soloing a mix or a channel, and if I hear any comms flutter on that shout bus, I can immediately pull down the IEM solo or unsolo anything, and I can focus directly on the shouts going on, anything from the band, front house, broadcaster, etc. Anyone that wants to get hold of me, I can hear directly into my ears all the time. So even if I'm a bit tired of hearing a mix, something I could dip that down, and I'm not taking my ears out, because it's still in, and I will always hear the communication shouts going on there. I shall go over how we set up our matrix mixer next, but I've just wanted to show you what matrix sends I've got set up, because it will make more sense shortly. So as I said, I've got a Q left and right here, a tech mix left and right here, also on a matrix of course, and a spare IEM mix that I'll go over why I run these two in a matrix system, as you'll see shortly, but I'll go over the Q system first in the matrix. So I'm going to head back to the master page now and up to the matrix mixer. So here we go, so our matrix mixer here. So you can see the Q left and Q right output buses we've got there in the background, the tech left and right we put in, and the spare left and right all in there. So it's a 12 input mixer on this SD9 I've got set to. So we can add in what we want via the small buttons at the top. So I'm going to bring in here on matrix input 1, I'm going to bring in the solo left. And solo right. And also on the third input for this, I'm going to bring in the shout auxiliary, the shout mix auxiliary there. There we go. Now I can select, so the left goes to the left and the right goes to the right obviously. And I'm going to use this gamepad here, so go 0 dB on these, and then you will need to turn them on as well, so you can see the red lights there. I'm going to clear that one and then select the mono bus input. So I tend to run these at -5 if there's an emergency or anything, I need to gain it up instantly. It's quite grabbable from the top, and I can instantly gain that up now. So there we go. So the solo bus is headed straight to that matrix stereo output there, to the in-ear pack, and along with the shout mix here. So both individually controlled directly to my ears at all times, or if I need to bring that solo bus down, I can duck it down immediately. Obviously I only do this on the in-ear pack. We wouldn't want to do it on the floor wedge because you wouldn't want shouts, etc., annoying everyone coming out of that all the time. Most of us tip our shout boxes down, and this is a good way of keeping it in your ears and staying on comms. So moving on from there, my tech mix. Now my tech mix, I have an auxiliary tech mix which is then fed into a matrix output. Pretty much for the same reason why I run the Q system the same, just having a separate shout bus input. There's a slightly advanced feature I put in there as well as a ducking mix. So what we want to deliver is clear communication to the guys on tech mixes. So if there needs to be a note passed to the band, or an issue from front of house or broadcast, whatever they're listening to, we need that to be clearly delivered. So this is a technique I use to get that to them. So to begin with this, I've obviously made the tech mix and the matrix output as I've shown you. So I'm going to bring in the top here, matrix input 5 is going to become my tech mix, and on 6, tech mix right. So again, I'm going to go to my tech left and right output buses there, highlight the 2, up to 0, and turn them on. Now what I'm going to do as well is the shout mix, I'm also going to bring into their ears as well, down here further down, go to -5 of them for now, I turn them on. So there we go, we have the tech's aux mix of the band or ambience, etc., going into their matrix output to their in-ear packs, plus the shout mix I've already balanced going into their packs as well. The next step from there, always make sure you clear that one, the matrix does catch you out. The next step from there, I go back to the right hand side. So here on the MISC panel, you can come and see, so you can see the shout mix and the shout duck. Now I'm just going to put some sends immediately into the shout mix. So I'm going to use this SD9, it's mirrored to here, it's nice and quick. So patch talk back, broadcast, front house talks, all of them straight into that shout mix, as you can see there. And then into the shout duck mix, also exactly the same. So with them dialed in, we're going to go up to the in-ear level, and then we're going to look at this tech mix here that I've got dialed in here. So we're going to look at the dynamic section, so the second set of dynamics, which is normally set to a gate as per the standard SD config. Now I'm going to move this to a duck by pushing the button to the left of it there. So as you can see, it's now saying duck. I'm also going to change the key, so this is what it's going to listen to for a threshold breach for it to react. Now we're going to change this into the shout duck mix, so shout duck. So now you can see it's keyed in and it's listening to that shout duck mix we've made. Now if I turn the attack time nice and low, so it's really fast to react. Oh, good old mouse. Okay, and I'm going to tell it to hold on once it's breached, and a slow release. Okay, so this threshold you can bring down. So this is the threshold, of course, of when it reacts of a breach, and it will react. It will currently duck down the tech mix, the stage tech mix, so the band or ambience, whatever is going to this mix, down by 15 dB once it hears chatter on that shout duck mix. Now, I'm going to say 10 dB, that's quite aggressive enough. So, say 10 dB now. I'm going to send some pink noise in there on this console, just so you can see this. So, Shout duck mix, there we go. So I'm going to put in some pink noise here, as you can see on the VUs. Okay. Now if I go back to the IM level, and back up to here, ducker, I'm going to turn it on now. And you see when I reduce it, it's going to go red. The threshold's been breached and the mix is now ducked down by the 10 dB we plugged in. If I put it to compressor, of course it won't keep my settings, but if I bring this threshold down now, there you go. So you can see audio is coming in there, you can see the gain reduction on the compressor. You can compress, of course, it's all preference of your relative style. So I'm going to keep it back to duck. It won't keep my seconds, of course. So I'm going to quickly smash on these in. Okay, bring this back down again so you can see it's now ducking. So you can set that as a relative guide of where you want that threshold to kick in. So if it's quite a loud environment, you want it to keep spill if anyone leaves their mic open, triggering the gate. So you can always keep an eye on it. You can always bring the key listen in here and have a listen of really narrow it in if you like, but it should be fine. Just have to turn the switch off. Okay, so I've set up on another layer just to demonstrate this to you, all the collaborators in one space. So I've got here the tech mix aux, which is containing the band, etc. A shout mix of just shouts, so front of house, myself. I use the talk bus here, going directly into their mix just by accessing this. The shout duck mix we've also set up as well, and the matrix outputs which feed directly to the in-ear transmitter going out the console. So with that in, I shall move down and I'll just dial some things in on the desk to give you an idea. So from the tech mix, I'm just going to send some pink noise in here so you can see it fluttering away there. And as you can see, it's going straight up to those auxes and then out to the matrix outputs. So I'm going to feed in some pink noise into the shout mix, just like that. As you can see, it's being combined because you can see the VU increase on the matrix output there. So I'm going to send something into the shout ducking mix now, so I'm just going to put some tone into there, and you should see the VUs drop on the tech mix outputs on the matrix side there. I'm also going to just turn that pink down slightly in those shout mix, there we go. So there you go, you can see with some stimulus from the shout mix and the shout duck there, so people talking, and then it brings their mix back up again. Obviously this is quite a large dynamic, I wouldn't introduce this on stage, just 10 dB is enough to get cutting through the ears of the tech mixes. Now there are obviously ways that different doing it, so on the talk bus you can see here there are a dim input there, so you can actually dim a mix. So what that basically says is, so when the monitor engineer hits that talk button, whether it be via a macro or directly on the bus itself, you can see it will dim the mix, as you can see here. So if I tell it to dim again drastically at 14 dB, you can see it hiss. And the only thing about this is I find some engineers leave this button on, and it's slightly limited in its function. That's why I prefer the other method, because you can bring in multiple talks and do the same result, delivering clear communication to the stage. So there we go, a nice, not too complicated way of just delivering some nice ducking on the mixes for the guys. So anything that's being sent to their ears will be ducked every time someone says something on a talk, a shout, anything like that. It's ducked and then slowly fades back up after that chat has finished. Nice and clear communication on stage. It does go down well. So moving next, we're going to go back to our lovely matrix mixer, back up onto the master page. So clicking on the matrix at the top again, going back to our spare left and right output down the bottom there. I'll keep it up to the right, far away, just in case any additions need to go in here. So I'm going to bring in here just a random mix to start with, just to show you an example. Here we go. So in ear 1, so I'm going to cascade. So there we go. So you can see in-ear mix 1 is coming into there, and I shall feed this into the spare matrix output. There we go. Oh, I need to use the keypad accuracy. There we go, 0 dB. So this is now sending the aux mix 1, IM1, directly out into the spare mix. I use this method, as I was about to go through, just so it's really fast to send any mix straight to the spare pack in easily. So you've got a brand new frequency and a new pack straight out to your artist or anything. Now, what I tend to do is stick this on a macro, as I'll go through next, just to show how easy and quick it is. So we're going to clear this. I'm going to head to our macro section. So new macro. Sure, Tom has been over this lovely capture feature for you. So if you click on capture, head back to our matrix. Now at the top, we're going to pull up again the next matrix. So I'm going to create this cascade, and we're going to create the input one as a macro first. So just reselect this, so it's got it as a macro, and then click capture. Okay, so now we've got it in here. So it says view matrix output, and it's changing the source roots. As you can see, IM1 is already there. So with that created, I'm going to rename this. Yes, I've totally forgotten to do that. So I'm going to call this IEM1 to spare. There we go. You see there, and another one as well. Again with a capture, new macro, back up to matrix. Now I'm going to change this, matrix cascaded, to IM2. And then come back, close here, unselect capture. As you can see, it's coming there. So I'm going to call this now IEM2 spare. Right, so with those two macros now captured and in the console, you would tend to stick these on a macro key. Now macro keys on this desk, you only have 8. Depending what you're spec with, etc., you can have more keys, but keys are precious. So I tend to use the keyboard function keys to stick this on. It's right below the desk. It's normally just below the faders. It's so quick to get to in an emergency. So I'm going to send, let's go for this second macro on F2 on the keyboard, and the first macro on F1. Now, if I just go and hit F1, you can see it brings up the matrix mixer, and immediately you can see IM1 is now being sent to the spare mix. Now if I just hit F2, so all I'm going to do, you can see immediately it's changed to IM2 is now going to that spare mix. It's just a really fast way of duplicating a mix or sending out a fresh frequency to anyone who's having issues with packs, etc. on stage. So with that said, that's kind of it for this first video. Just some nice things you can put in the desk, bed in, and it can be really quick on comms, etc. You can get this out on a festival and be quite useful, especially with that spare feature. It's really useful. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something from it. Catch you soon.